Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Theoretical Doctor Audio Blogs. In this video, I will be sharing regarding my tagging period in my third posting, the Department of Paediatrics as a house officer. The link to the article of this audio blog is available in the description below if you would prefer to read on it instead. I tagged for 12 days in total during my third posting pediatrics. I was determined to take my time during tagging and to learn as much as I can until, well, a fellow medical officer who was then in charge of our ward allocations and of approving our leaves told me during my day 3 of tagging that he would grant my leaves once I've off-tagged and allow me to return home for a visit in Johor Bahru. I did not request for it. In fact, returning home was the last thing on my mind. However, suddenly there was a reason to off-tag fast, which is good in a way as I forced myself to study and tried to expose myself to various cases, but also bad as my main focus totally shifted to off-tag rather than to actually take my time and learn. The standard tagging time in all postings except ONG is from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. with one off day in a week. In the pediatrics posting, I was posted to the General Pediatric Ward 2B. Thus, I came at 6 a.m. and begin my morning reviews and carry on with the usual ward work till about 6 p.m. At 6 p.m., I would take a break and most of the time it would be my first meal of the day. At around 7 p.m., I would then head over to my allocated night wards. Tagging in this posting is in the General Pediatric Ward 2B, Pediatrics Isolation Ward 3A, or Nursery. Usually after 6 p.m., we will shift wards. Sometimes we do remain in our initial allocated ward. However, most of the time, we are allocated to wards which requires more manpower. There are several things that are required of us to off-tag. We each had to print out a tagging logbook. Inside, we are required to clerk new cases in the general ward, new cases in the nursery ward, transfer in or clerk any neonatal jaundice babies, interpret blood gases, observe basic neonatal resuscitation, perform any aseptic procedures, and perform baby check. All of these were the fundamentals which we have to master prior to off-tag, and for each section, there were about 10 slots to fill. The degree of completion of our logbooks solely depends on the mentor that we are being assigned to. There are some mentors who require the logbook to be fully filled, and then there are some mentors who did not mind but passed us upon completion of our off-tag assessment. We were required to tag for at least 10 days. It was good as it provided the night shift team with extra hands and alleviated some of their active tasks, but also bad as it was tiring. At the end of the day, we had to get the stamp and signature of the medical officers on call as proof of our attendance for that day. I was fortunate enough to be assigned to a kind medical officer. She was stationed in the pediatric oncology ward at that time. I went into the ward and introduced myself. She told me that what I would be assessed in would be found in the compiled notes passed on by my seniors. Inside were the fundamentals that we had to know as a house officer. Not adequate for us, of course, but at least adequate enough for us to function in the general wards or in the nursery ward. My off-tag assessment was put on hold for some time as my mentor was not well at that time. Albeit my assessor was kind, she was rather strict and I did not pass during the first round as I was required to answer every bit of scenario given correctly. Hence, I went through a second assessment 2 days later, of which thankfully I succeeded. My mentor did not require me to complete my logbook, which is a good thing, as there were a lot of holes or empty slots in my logbook. I informed the house officer in charge of us that I have off-tagged and was able to proceed with night shift. It is a requirement to off-tag prior to starting the night shift. Finally, I was able to return home for a short break and had the best weekend after the longest time. Surviving the tagging period during this third posting of mine seems easier as compared to my tagging period in the previous 2 postings. Perhaps it is because I've grown accustomed as I progressed throughout my housemanship journey. However, I'd like to think that mainly it was because the environment was friendly and nurturing. Hence, despite being physically tired as the job lists are more and we returned home after 10 p.m., I am not as mentally drained as I previously was, and I felt determined to rise and proceed to work again the following morning. Thank you for listening to this audio blog. Do stay tuned for more, which will be available every Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Remember to click on the subscribe button as well as the bell button so you won't miss out on any upcoming audio blogs.